My Slippers. I got to explain this to you. They are exclusive 3-tier cushioning system. It's like walking on clouds, right? We took the My Pillow patented foam, the one that you know and love, and they created a solid layer to provide incredible comfort. Don't forget to use the promo code Carter, CARTER, and you will receive 40% off of your My Slippers. Your whole family's going to love it. Biden has a huge problem on his hands. President Biden and his administration are ignoring what is happening at the U.S.-Mexico border. That roughly 2,000 miles of border, our southern border with Mexico, and the very dangerous and real crisis that we are all facing. And it's getting worse by the day, folks. I was just there. I came back from the McAllen sector again. You know, been back and forth for the last 5-6 weeks. And I'm back home spending some time with my family before I take off to the border again, going to San Diego, going to be covering all of these big stories and more. But I can tell you this, there isn't a time that I was not on the border, didn't matter what time of the day or night, where I didn't see dozens of people coming through wherever I was at. It didn't matter where I was at. I would see families and children. And oh my gosh, it was just so distressing, so tough, so tough. And that's why I brought Chris Cabrera on the show today. He has been with me. I've known him I've known Chris since before 2013. I've covered the border. Chris Cabrera is the vice president of the National Border Patrol Council now. He has done an amazing job at really fighting for agents who are on the front lines of this disaster, this humanitarian crisis. I'm going to have him on the show. I'm also going to talk to you about some really big news. We have some reports, and it deals with, obviously, the UFO situation and what we have been facing, new recent reports of UFO sightings from the U.S. Navy. It's huge breaking news on that. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about that. I keep up on that. And the only reason I'm talking to you about this most recent news on these unidentified aerial phenomena or vehicles that have been reported by personnel from the U.S. Navy is because it has been verified and authenticated to me by U.S. officials that the video that is up on our site, SaraACarter.com, that's SaraACarter.com, is actual authenticated video from the U.S. government. And there's been some reports that there's actually an ongoing FBI investigation as to how those videos leaked. So that's very interesting to me. Remember, you can get all of these amazing firsthand stories right here at SaraACarter.com. That's Sara A. Don't forget the A, Carter.com, or you're going to be buying artwork from a different Sara Carter. And that you don't want to do that. Or maybe you do. She has great artwork. You could go take a look at it. I don't mind pitching her. But go to SaraACarter.com. Please, while you're there, sign up for our email list so you don't get shadow banned. Guys, today's podcast is brought to you by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. I love this organization. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every benefit that AARP offers, but without the liberal agenda. Go to amac.us/Carter and join today. Don't forget to join it today. It is still a crisis at the border. This is the reason why I am reporting, and I will be reporting from San Diego this coming week. It has been a very difficult time for our Border Patrol agents and especially for law enforcement officials trying to get the attention of our lawmakers in Washington, D.C., particularly Democrats. You would think that this would be at the top of a Democrat agenda, right? Wrong. Nobody's dealing with the facts here, folks. The reason I have Chris Cabrera on the show today, and I said his name kind of weird. Chris will make fun of me if I don't correct that. Chris Cabrera on the show with me today is because he's going to explain to you what they are dealing with on the border, what our federal law enforcement officials, our Border Patrol agents, our immigration and customs enforcement officials and officers are dealing with every single day. And it's a tragedy. We have so many children pouring in across the border and so many family units. The numbers are unbelievable and daunting. They are unbelievable and daunting. I want you to think about this. In March alone, Border Patrol agents encountered almost 20,000 children at the U.S. border. That is the largest number ever recorded in a single month, guys. These teenagers, we've got 20,000 children and teenagers in custody of the U.S. government system. We are taking care of them. It's already over capacity. It's already over capacity. We have Department of Health and Human Services. They don't even know what to do at this point. We have the Department of Homeland Security and NASA being recruited right now. Employees of NASA will you take a 4-month paid leave from your job to help care for migrant children in government-run shelters packed with new arrivals at the border? We're actually asking our employees at NASA if they want to come to the border to take care of this issue. That's how many children and people are crossing the border. And this did not happen just because something disastrous happened in Central America or around the world. This is happening because of the policies created by the Biden administration that basically said, we're going to just reverse everything that President Trump did. Listen, world, we're reversing all of President Donald Trump's border policies, which were working. And then we're going to just throw those out. And we're going to just let you guys all apply for asylum within 100 days. And we're a different kind of administration. We're a caring administration. If you were a caring administration, you would not allow this to happen, because those children, those migrant children, are actually being abused. A lot of them, they're in danger. They're terrified. And I've talked to many of them along the U.S. border, and some of them are just so doggone cute. And you just breaks your heart when you see like a 4-year-old, or you're talking to a little 4-year-old like I did. His name was Anthony. And, you know, he had just traveled from Honduras and with his mother, and he's so small. And you think to yourself, like, how did you even make it? Right? How did you even get here with all of the dangers that you faced? And there isn't words to express the horror when you see some of the situations that these children have been in. They aren't just coming on. I say it over and over again. Please, please listen to me. Please, please listen to me. So, you know, these children aren't coming on normal buses or on aircraft, flying in, you know, with their parents, guarded and taken care of. A lot of these kids are exposed to the worst monsters and predators you can imagine. They are sometimes raped. There are pedophiles on these journeys. Sometimes these children die. They're never found again. And I'm going to talk to Chris Cabrera about that. He's going to go into detail with what they've had to deal with when he comes on the show. And I want you to understand that. And first of all, I want to ask Susan Rice, who's supposed to be the director of Domestic Policy Council, and, you know, Amy Pope, the president's senior advisor for immigration issues. Where are all these people? Where are they? Where are they? I mean, they're not even paying attention to this. It's like they don't even care. It's like they don't even want to know that it exists. Like that something's even happening here, right? Where are they? Hello, Susan Rice. What about Kamala Harris? Why isn't she doing anything? Okay, I'm going to play this clip again. I promised for Chris Cabrera, but I have to play this clip for myself. This is how Kamala Harris reacted. Remember when people asked her if she was going to go to the border? Listen to this.
Do you have plans to visit the border?
Not today. But I have before, and I'm sure I will again.
Oh, I'm sure you will again. I'm sure I will again. Not today. What is that cackling laugh? What is that laugh? Is it a laughter, a nervous laugh? Who knows? I don't know. But it's not the answer. That is not the answer that a vice president of the United States should give regarding this crisis, this very devastating crisis on our country and on our nation and on the people that are crossing into our nation and on the American citizens who are going to have to deal with this for decades to come. And what about all the people? I was talking to a Border Patrol agent while I was up in McAllen. And, you know, it was late at night. There was a gentleman there that was very sick. In fact, you know what? I'm going to play a clip of this because it broke my heart. He had come across the border with his 2 daughters. I was with Chris Cabrera, and I'm going to have him address this because he's an amazing man and a hero in my book. And this gentleman literally, he said he had asthma, but it sounded like it was far worse than just asthma. I want you to hear this clip. This was me on the border last week with Chris Cabrera, talking to a family that had just crossed.
Yeah, Sean, it was devastating. We spent the entire night into the early morning hours, roughly around 2 a.m. when we wrapped up, and people were pouring across the border. The tragedy there was that father was very, very ill. His oxygen levels dropped to about 72%. He was immediately taken by National Border Patrol Council Vice President Chris Cabrera to the facility. Him and his family were loaded up. He could have had COVID. We don't know. Everybody suspects anything out here. It could have been anything else, but he was very, very ill and immediately taken to an emergency facility. We saw other children that were sick, that were dehydrated, children that were crying. There was a little girl that apparently was his daughter, allegedly his daughter, that was crying, and she was telling me, she's only 6 years old, and she was saying to me, I'm so scared, I'm so scared, I'm so scared. And when you see this type of humanitarian crisis, it's much different than just when you're there than seeing it on television. You really understand the toll that this is taking, not only on the people that are crossing, but on the American people and on our law enforcement officials.
It's so true. It was just so devastating to see what's happening and to know that very few of our lawmakers are taking what is happening at the border seriously enough. I think about over and over again how they've berated us and told us we have to wear masks, double masks. You can't go out in public. You can't hang out here. Lockdowns. They've kept our children home under lockdown. Schools aren't open. But yet people are pouring across the border. And gosh, guys, I was talking to a Border Patrol agent out there, and I'm talking to people who are out there on the border. At least 20+% of the people they believe that they come in contact with are coming in here COVID positive. So even the people that I'm talking to, we're out there. I mean, they are coming in here. A lot of them may be COVID positive. They could have other things, right? It's not their fault that they're sick. They're not coming in here purposefully to get other people sick. But it's really interesting how the Democrats and how the Biden administration refuse to address this. Fauci didn't even address this. Fauci didn't even know what to say when he was asked about this. He just played it off. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the world's greatest, right? That guy. This is why we have to ask the right questions. This is why I'm on the ground doing it, the stories straight from where they are breaking. You want to know why? You want to know why? Because I don't want to be lied to. You don't want to be lied to. We need to know what is going on. And our government, who we pay our tax dollars to, their salary is our tax dollars. Remember that. They work for us. They need to start answering some questions. And we need to hold them accountable. I told you I would touch on the UFO situation, and I think this is so important. Before I get to Chris, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. There were 2 U.S. Navy ships that recently encountered these extraordinary UFOs. Several classified Pentagon videos were allegedly leaked, and they were leaked to this investigative journalist, Jeremy Lockyer Corbell. He has a website. It's called extraordinarybeliefs.com. Go to extraordinarybeliefs.com. You can also read the story at saraacarter.com. But what's so extraordinary about these two sightings is that they were witnessed by actual USS Navy ships, right? This is so incredible. These videos, which were obtained exclusively, have been verified to me by U.S. officials as being authentic videos. These are not doctored videos. And the U.S. Navy photographed and filmed what they believe to be pyramid-shaped UFOs and what they call advanced transmedium vehicles. And I know it sounds like sci-fi. I know it sounds like going off, where's Sarah going with all this UFO stuff? Look, I'm not saying this because it's like, some science fiction, thing that I'm trying to push out there. This is very real. The DNI Director of National Intelligence, former DNI John Ratcliffe, had told Maria Bartiromo, remember, I don't know if you remember this interview last month, that when the United States report that is expected to be coming out on June 25th on the UFOs comes out, there's a lot more information than has been made public in the past. He said some of those have been declassified, but a lot have not. These sightings have not been declassified, and he hopes they will be. And when we talk about sightings, we are talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots or have been picked up by satellite imagery that frankly engage in actions that are difficult to explain. That's what he said. And I told you, when I've talked to the sources that I've spoken with, they have authenticated these videos. You can see them on my website. Those videos were obtained by members of the USS Russell and the USS Ohio. The first incident on the USS Russell actually took place July 2019. And the second incident on the USS Ohio, which is believed to be authentic and real, involved basically a vessel that appeared to come out of the water and up into the air. So it flew from under the water and went straight up into the air. Look, could this be technology from another nation, an enemy state? Wow. If they are, we're in big trouble because we apparently don't have that. Could this be U.S. technology? I don't know. But I think we should at least get some answers. Right? I think, as citizens of this country, we deserve some answers. Hopefully we will get them. Remember, there is a report coming out soon on all of this. June 25th is the expected date of that report or thereabouts. So we will definitely keep you posted on that. And last but not least, before I go any further, I have the great Chris Cabrera on with us today. He is the vice president of the National Border Patrol Council. He is a great friend of mine. He has spent years working, and he lives in the McAllen sector, the Rio Grande Valley sector, where the Border Patrol is constantly protecting our nation. It's important that we understand what's happening at the border, and this is the reason why I have Chris on the show with me today. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show. Been a long time no see, just about a week. I mean, I feel like I see you more now than I've seen you in years.
Yeah, it's been pretty busy, and you've been down here quite a bit here lately.
I know, and I think we need to be down there so much more. And, the McAllen sector, and I talked about this in our opening monologue, but is such an important part of the U.S.-Mexico border in telling the story. And I want you to go into a little bit of details of that, what you and the Border Patrol are having to deal with down there, particularly in your sector, what you're seeing, and what you're most worried about.
I've been in almost 20 years, and this is the busiest I've seen it. We're having, large groups of people coming in, mainly at night, but, sometimes during the day, 50, 100, 200 at a time. And they're turning themselves in because they know how to game the system. At the same time, we're having, large groups, running from us at the same time, but we don't have the manpower to deal with both of them. And, you have 60 or 70 that walk up and turn themselves in. We got to make sure they're doing okay, especially with the heat. And at the same time, you got a group of 20 that are running from us, and we just can't tear away from this group that we have in custody for safety reasons to go chase some people that are running. And so we got a lot getting away from us. There's a lot of drugs, a lot more drugs coming through, and it's creating a lot of chaos down here.
I think that the national security crisis is such a huge issue, Chris, and you and I talked about that. I mean, I want for every one of you out there that's listening to Chris and I right now, over the last 6 weeks, I've been going back and forth into Texas. I've been to Arizona. I'm heading out to California to cover the border issues there. But Chris and I have known each other for a very long time. I remember when I first met Chris way back when, and then I was covering the undocumented, unaccompanied minor issue in 2013, 2014. Compare the differences. I mean, back then, and I've said this before on the podcast, Chris, we had roughly over 67,000 undocumented and unaccompanied minors that came into the United States in that fiscal year, from 2013 to 14 under President Obama. We're going to see those numbers double or triple this year, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what we're looking at. It's interesting because, this has been going on 8 years now. And up until just recently, we were evolving. We were trying to catch up and figure out how to get this thing done. And it took us a long time. Every time we changed something, they countered, the smugglers countered with their own tactic. And it took us a long time to get to the point where we had things somewhat under control. And then all of a sudden, as soon as we switch administrations here, it's just like the rug got pulled out from under our feet, and all the progress that was made in the last, I can't say 4 years, it was more like the 8 years, and all that progress we made has just been torn away from us. And right now, unfortunately, the administration, they're not addressing the problem, they're addressing the result of the problem. And instead of trying to figure out a way to stop more people from coming in, they're just trying to get more bed space in the United States for these people and get them out the door quicker so that they can be released. So as long as we have that, it's just going to keep our numbers are going to keep doubling every so often.
It's just incredible to me. I'm going to play this clip. But before I get there, this is Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm going to play it in just a second for you. But before I get there, the situation at the border, I don't think people can actually fathom what it's like unless they're there. And I'm so frustrated because I feel like there's very few media outlets, like major media outlets. I know Fox News is probably one of the only major ones that's continuously covering the border. I don't see CNN covering it the same way. I don't see other media outlets covering it the same way. And I've never seen a crisis like this before, Chris, never to this extent, and especially with the children. And you and I have focused a lot on the humanitarian crisis and the children. Before we get to that, I want to play this clip and get your impression of like how this administration, and I'm not asking you to get political here, but how does it make you feel when you hear something like this? Play that clip, Greg.
Do you have plans to visit the border?
Not today, but I have before, and I'm sure I will again.
I mean, it's a laugh. People are on the border. They're dying. I mean, I don't understand. Do you think people just don't get how dangerous the situation is, the real humanitarian crisis that's occurring there, and what we're dealing with when we're out there on the border? Yeah,
I find that, it kind of, I would guess a little rather disturbing. I don't know if it's a nervous laughter, if they caught her off guard, what. I don't want to make excuses for her, but I do think the administration needs to come down here and see for themselves, not just the president, vice president, but everybody from in the Senate and the Congress, any lawmakers, even lawmakers from other states, state lawmakers. They need to see what's going on down here because unfortunately we're trying to get news coverage down here, but they're being blocked in getting access to the facilities. So they just know what they've been told, and if somebody's downplaying it or doesn't have a complete idea, a good understanding of what's going on here, it's real easy to misinterpret it and say, hey, you're just kind of playing dumb. I didn't know it was that bad. Well, if you came down here, you'd know. It's a serious thing, and I think this goes way past politics. It's a humanitarian issue when you have these young kids, 7 years old, traveling alone. And sometimes even younger. We've seen 3-4 year olds, 2-year-olds, or a 14-year-old traveling with, say, a 4-year-old. It's very dangerous for these kids, and I feel that not everybody's taking it as seriously as they should.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to talk too about the great work that the men and women of the Border Patrol do and being there on the front lines. And I've witnessed this over the years, over the decades of covering this story. And I especially witnessed it this last time I was in the McAllen sector, and it was with you, Chris. And I know you're a very humble guy. You don't talk a lot about what you do all the time. You're the vice president of the National Border Patrol Council. You represent agents out on the front line. And just so all of you out there understand, a lot of times, the people that are crossing the border, almost 100% of the time, the first person that they're going to run into, the first person they're going to turn themselves into is a Border Patrol agent. Whether they're sick, whether they're just turning themselves in, whether they're going to be apprehended because they're trying to run away, whatever it is. And a lot of times these children and people, this is the first time that they have actually even been with someone that can get them to a doctor or whatever. And on this long journey, some people taking 8 weeks to get here, some people become very ill. Chris actually was out on the border with me. There was a gentleman who was with a large group of people. He came across, he was with his 2 daughters. He had told Chris and I, we both speak Spanish, that he lost his wife in Honduras, I believe, and that she had died of cancer, that he had traveled with his 2 young daughters, very young. And he was so sick, Chris. I don't know. We didn't know if he had COVID. We didn't know. He said he was asthmatic, but his oxygen levels were very low. Chris pretty much did everything he could to get him to a medical facility right away or get him to a medic right away so that let's talk a little bit about that, Chris, because I want people to understand what you guys are up against.
We have a lot of Border Patrol agents not a lot. We have a good number of Border Patrol agents that are cross-trained as EMTs or paramedics, and it's really a necessity to have EMTs out there. For one, we work in areas that are inaccessible to ambulance, emergency services. Even if they could get down there, which a lot of times they'd get lost getting down there, their vehicles can't possibly make it out. And then plus the time it takes for somebody to get down there or get help to us, whether it be another vehicle or a helicopter or what, we have to do some type of life-saving measures on there. So a lot of our guys are cross-trained. There's really nothing extra in it for us. Obviously there's no extra pay bump or anything, but I think you'll find that most guys that do it don't do it for any type of pay. It's just trying to help people out. We came across this guy and I had my medic gear with me, not all of it, because usually we have fully stocked vehicles. So I just have my bag with me, and we see this guy and he's complaining that he can't breathe, and, he's got a look of distress on his face. So I talked to him get as much out of him as I could. And then he really starts coughing, wet cough, and didn't have his asthma inhaler. I took his levels and he was down in the 70s. So we called for another medic to show up who wasn't from the area. And, it was just taking too long. So we just threw him in the back of my personal pickup truck, him and the family, and took off and got him to an aid station where he could get some oxygen. And ultimately he ended up going to the hospital. So.
And I want people to really understand this, because I think that Border Patrol agents, as well as immigration and customs enforcement officers, have really had a bad rap by some lawmakers, not all lawmakers, but by some lawmakers who have, compared, let's even say, I remember even Vice President Kamala Harris, wanting to abolish ICE and, all of this other stuff, and then saying, well, she didn't mean to say abolish ICE. And there was all this back and forth. But for many of the people crossing the border, these Border Patrol agents, especially the ones that want to turn themselves in, are their first line of hope, their first line of help. But this is such a complicated issue, right, Chris? I mean, it's so multi-layered. You talked about getting people to the border, getting lawmakers to the border. We've had a number of lawmakers at the border. Unfortunately, all of them have been Republican. And I say unfortunately because we need to get Democrats down to the border to see what's going on, but they have not joined these groups. This is a sound clip. I'd like you to respond. I think you were out with me that day. This is where I was speaking with Nunez and Scalise at the border. This is Congressman Devin Nunez, Congressman Steve Scalise, the House Whip. They were there at the border with me, and this is the first time that they really got a good look at what was happening this time around in McAllen, Texas, at the U.S.-Mexico border. Play that clip, Greg.
What is your biggest concern right now as far as the national security issues related to the border, considering we saw 2 men from Yemen on the terror watch list?
Well, in this particular area, this Rio Grande Valley, this is an area where a lot of the children are coming, a lot of the families are coming. And so the danger in this area would be that they're overloading the Border Patrol from doing their job. Now, the Texas governor has put in some National Guard and brought in also local law enforcement, state law enforcement to try to beef that up. But it's really, if you overload the Border Patrol, then it makes it easier for the bad guys to sneak through. So as you see these families that are coming across with young children, we don't know who's sneaking through the rest of these areas.
If you had a message for President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, what would that be?
Well, we're waiting for Harris to get here. She's supposedly she's in charge of this, and I don't think she's been here.
Would you call this a crisis?
This is more than a crisis, yeah. It's catastrophe.
What do you hope will change? What are you going to demand of the Biden administration?
We're demanding that the Biden administration reverse this failed policy. This is a crisis that was exclusively created by Joe Biden's actions, and he can reverse it tomorrow. This isn't some law that Congress passed. This is something Joe Biden did the day he became president. He was telegraphing it before he took the oath of office, but now you can see the result of it.
So let's talk about that, Chris. What are the people telling you? I know what they're telling me. I just want to get your take on when people cross the border, if you have an opportunity to talk to them and you ask them, why are you coming here? Why are so many of you coming here? What is their answer to you usually?
Usually when I go down there, in the union capacity and in civilian clothes, not in uniform, People tell me their story. I try and ask everybody their story, just not for fun. I mean, I want to know what's going through their mind. I mean, they're humans, and 9 times out of 10, it's always an economic thing. There may be something in there about a gang neighborhood or something, a bad neighborhood, but mainly it's about jobs. It's about there's no jobs in their home country. They need a better life. And then once we get the Border Patrol agents come and start talking to them and question them, the story automatically switches, and it turns into some type of political issue or some type of asylum claim. And granted, yeah, they're from a very impoverished area. Not all of them, most of them, and they unfortunately they just don't qualify for asylum the way it's written.
Right. So, and that's why the stories switch. I know when I was down there, I heard the same. A lot of people talked about economics, but then by the time Border Patrol came around, there was some kind of asylum claim. Either there was one person in particular that said they were gay after they had already spoken with me, and I wasn't quite sure that that's what they were claiming in the beginning, but then they said that they were going to ask for asylum based on the fact that they were gay and that they were being outcast in their home country and that they were afraid for their life. Other issues such as political issues like you brought up. But what was interesting to me, and I don't know if this is something that you heard, is that the cartels as well as the human traffickers were really over exaggerating, I believe, and telling people that the Biden administration was just basically opening the doors for them. And that's why we're seeing such huge numbers.
Yeah. I talked to one guy. I asked him, why now? Why are you coming? And this was it was mid-February. And I asked him, why are you coming now? Why didn't you come, say, 3 months ago or 2 years ago? I mean, what's the significance of you coming at this point in time? And he says, President Biden said that if I come now, I get to stay. I have 100 days to get here. And I told him,
I heard that.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, that's really not what the president said. The president put a hold on deportation. So if you're already ordered deported, and, I explained it to him, and he was adamant that he was right and I was wrong. Nope, that's not what he said. And I was like, yeah, you know what? He didn't say you could come and you have 100 days to get here. That just didn't happen. And he goes, nope, you're wrong. That's what he said. And then sure enough, he came with a kid and he got released as a family unit into the country. And so, now he's right and I'm wrong, because regardless of what the president did or didn't say, his version is right in his mind. And that's what he's going to call back home and tell his people that, hey, you know what, I was right and come on over. You got 100 days. And so their perception is the reality.
Right, because they really are not getting turned around and sent back home for the most part. People are being allowed to stay. So even if President Biden didn't say that exactly word for word, that's what they believe, because the actions and the policies of the U.S. government have led those statements to be true. Even if they weren't written in stone, it's just happening. People are being released. When you talked about the kids, they're, and everyone here in this situation, I believe, is a pawn, right? We're all I feel like, how many times am I going to tell this story over and over and over again before anybody does anything to fix it? When you see all those kids traveling, talk a little bit about, you and I spend a lot of time talking about this. When somebody says, well, we should just let everybody in and, they're coming here for a better life. They don't understand the people that are, I say, maybe more sympathetic, or they think that these people are traveling on a Greyhound bus or some airplane to the border, like safely. They don't really understand the dangers that these children face, that these families face on this 8-week trek or 3-month trek or 6-week trek, however long they're out there. I don't think people get it. The kind of monsters that these people run into and the kind of predators that target these children.
Yeah, you hit it right on. And most of them travel a month, maybe 2 months. And some of them, they have a little more money and they'll fly straight into one of the border towns. But then there's still a lot of danger in it with them, because, there's a lot of danger on the way. But probably the most dangerous part is the last leg before they cross over. And that's with the smuggler. A lot of times these smugglers will charge them extra, or another smuggler will steal the people from a different guy and make them pay all over again. And sometimes they violate these women, these young girls, or even young boys. I had a little girl the other day. She's 13 years old. We had her in custody for about an hour and a half before they picked her up to take her to the processing center. And she handed us her ID, but she just cried the entire time. She wouldn't talk. She couldn't talk. She just cried the entire time. And Lord knows what happened to her. We had another lady that was violated in front of her husband and her two young sons right on the other side of the river. And they told the husband that if he tried anything, that they were going to rape one of the boys. And, you know, it's just, they go through just horrible, horrible things. And when you have a young kid in care of another kid, say that we've seen before, an 8-year-old boy caring for his 5-year-old sister, if somebody wants that 5-year-old sister or even that 8-year-old boy, who's going to stop them? If a grown man wants them, they just take them. You know, we had some last night that when I worked, kids were telling me that, you know, they climbed up on the train, they were riding the train. Some of them fall off. Some of them get pushed off by other people. And it's just, it's a terrible thing. And it's no way to live, you know, regardless of what you're fleeing. It's to send a kid by themselves is just, it's not something a human would do. I mean, you can't send a 7-year-old girl across 3 countries with people she doesn't know, human predators, and get that kid back at the end of the day. But unfortunately, we give that kid back at the end of the day.
Right. You said something to me that, I mean, just blew my mind, and you were right. I mean, it was something that, you know, like you have that light bulb moment. So we're sitting there talking, Chris and I, it was, you know, we were waiting. There wasn't a time that we went to the border that people weren't crossing, and we go out, in this area near Rincon, and it's late at night, very dark. And Chris you said something to me like, we're the last line of smuggling. That's it. We're literally aiding and abetting the smugglers, because once the kids get in here, I mean, talk about that. I mean, if I left my child alone somewhere to be smuggled by strangers, right? I mean, yeah. I would probably go to jail.
You know, it's not even getting smuggled. If you left your kid in the car for 5 minutes while you ran in to get some milk at Walmart, you're getting locked up. You're abandoning that kid, or you're endangering that kid. But yet we see people, you know, grown women with a newborn, literally days old, on a 4-person raft with 27 people on there, and they're crossing the river, and that's endangering that child. Or you see a 7-year-old girl, which I see time and time again, a 7-year-old girl that is traveling by herself in a group full of older boys and men, and maybe 1 or 2 women in there. And luckily, somebody always grabs, guards that child and kind of takes them under their wing. But I can imagine that doesn't always happen. We hear from other kids that some of these kids don't make it. And, you know, it used to be that, you know, the smugglers kind of earned their money. They would cross the river. They would follow the guide up to a certain area, and they would try and get past us. And now these guys don't even get off the raft. Most of the time, the raft doesn't even make landfall. They'll drop them off 4 or 5 feet off the bank and just tell them, hey, go find somebody in a green shirt, and they come looking for us. And at the end of the day, we get these kids, we get them in custody, and then we put them on a plane and fly them to their parents, wherever their parents are at, a lot of times first class. And it's insane that, you know, us as the federal government, we're completing the process for these human smugglers. And what's even more ridiculous is the parent left that kid in the home country and came over here alone just so that the kid could follow him and they could get some type of protective status from the kid once the kid got here. That's just crazy to me.
Oh, it is. It's completely insane. And by the way, I saw that quite often when I was leaving McAllen and talked to 3 young girls who were actually on a flight with me. And, you know, because of their age and everything, of course, I'm not going to talk about them as far as like their names or anything on here, but they were sitting right in my area on the plane, and they were actually being flown to their guardians. And they had been traveling alone the last leg of their journey from Honduras. And I just thought to myself, who would allow their 10-year-old daughter or 12-year-old daughter to be traveling with a bunch of men, and then having to be housed in a facility, not know if they're going to get them back. And honestly, Chris, I don't really even know if some of the people claiming to be these children's guardians are really their guardians, or if some of these kids, because we just can't verify everything, are being utilized in like some kind of, smuggling or pedophilia rings or something of that nature, being forced into servitude. I am just stunned that people aren't really taking this as seriously as possible, especially when it comes to children.
Yeah, it is insane, and we're just turning a blind eye to it, and I don't know the reason why. I have yet to figure it out why nobody's getting serious about what's going on down here. I mean, because it is a humanitarian crisis.
Oh, it is a humanitarian crisis. You talked about la bestia, like kids getting thrown off of the trains, or the kids talking about it. I've talked to kids too that have told me that. And one of the things that I don't think people realize is that some of these children, they come from the mountains. They come from small villages in Guatemala or Honduras. Maybe some of them were just born at home. They don't really have birth certificates per se. There's no real evidence of them digitally that they even exist. So just think about it that way. Not all of them, but some of them. So if a child gets murdered or thrown off a train or disappears, it's like no one ever even knew they existed except for their families, and their families don't always report them, right?
Yeah. And on top of that, I mean, who would they report them to? Where would they even begin to look? There's just, right. I mean, there's so much ground to cover just on our side. There's so much ground to cover, and we find bodies, it's a pretty regular thing where we find people that have fallen behind in the brush, and, there's a lot of adults that can't make it. So you can imagine it's even harder for kids. And then just to go about the process of looking for them, especially with all the wildlife. I mean, you think of all the wild areas between here and Honduras, and an animal, once it gets a hold of those bones, we'll just
That's
scatter
it.
them.
I know we're getting really deep, and we're probably people are thinking like, oh gosh, I've never heard this before. I want you to understand. I want every one of you out there that's listening to this, that this really is a humanitarian crisis as much as it is a national security crisis. Before I let you go, Chris, I'm going to talk about the national security implications because you have a really good grasp of that. But if you care at all about these children, if you care at all about people in poverty and people who are desperate, and the fact that we are using people as pawns, political pawns. And I'm not just blaming, the foreign nations where they're fleeing. I'm blaming ourselves and our terrible policies here, and also putting our law enforcement officials really at risk, because when Chris and I are out there, I mean, I'm out there, you're out there, all the law enforcement, there's only so many precautions you can take against diseases, against the possibility of running into, a criminal element, against the possibility of getting shot. All of those things are what our law enforcement officials are running into every single day, and they're married, they go home, they have children, and anything can happen. We saw it with the Texas troopers that were shot. Anything can happen. And by the way, they were not shot by an immigrant or anything like that, but there were some Texas troopers that were actually shot by somebody who had last week gone for the worst part of it. Postal, they said, had become enraged at their employer, and these Texas troopers just, going to help him out on the side of the road, encountered this man, and he shot both of the troopers, killing one and putting another in critical condition. But this is what our law enforcement officials face every day, every single day. And I want you to understand that. And that's why I want you to hear the details of these stories. Before we move away from the children, there was an incident that happened where they threw a child into the river, right, Chris, when we were down there?
Yeah. It's unfortunate that it happens. It happens quite a bit, whether it's, right there towards the, once they see our boats getting close by, I've seen them dump a whole raft full of people into the water, some 15, 20 people. And it's, hey, either save them or catch that guy. And so what do? Obviously, you go after and save the people, but they don't care about these people. It's just dollar signs to them. They have no regard for human life. It's just cash is king over there, and that's all that matters.
Is it true that now they're up to about $1,600 per person just to make the crossing from Mexico into the U.S.? That doesn't include all the money that the people paid just to get there?
Yeah, that's just the actual crossing aspect of it, and sometimes that goes up. And on top of that, sometimes you get robbed in the process. And if you get caught, and by the off chance we do send you back, they charge you again.
That's just incredible.
It's a mess, And the thing is these guys have found a loophole. They've exploited it. They continue to exploit it, and we do nothing to put a stop to it.
Well, let's talk about really quickly before I let you go, the national security aspect, because I don't want to leave that out. And you heard Steve Scalise in that clip, as well as Devin Nunes talk about the national security implications. We know that in California, Border Patrol was able to apprehend 2 people from Yemen that were on the terror watch list. I'm sure the FBI is doing a thorough investigation into that now. At least I hope so. But there's a good possibility that other people came into the country and that this was just a small part of whatever group, whether that be Al Qaeda or someone else, that was trying to enter the United States through the porous border, right?
Yeah. And it happens quite a bit. And, that's just what we know about, because there's a lot of time. I mean, we have a very high, we call it gotaways, but a rate of people that we don't catch. And just because we don't have the manpower to do it, where too many of our guys are stuck inside babysitting, and it just takes one. You just need one bad person to give a whole lot of people a bad day. And that could be from a national security standpoint, or it can be just from a child sex predator or an arsonist or a murderer, and that comes across. Not everybody that comes across fits that bill, but there are a lot that come across.
Before I let you go, last and final words. What is the message you want to deliver to Washington, D.C.? What do you hope that the Biden administration hears from you?
Well, not just it's on both sides of the aisle. These guys need to put their partisan hat aside. If they want to do the humane thing, the right thing for these kids, that they need to come down here and first take a look for themselves, and 2, fix the problem. Get in a room, take your partisan hat off, and solve it. And my feeling would be, what? Don't even go back to D.C. to solve it. Solve it here. That way, if you have any doubts of what you saw, you can just walk back out there and see what we see, and it'll refresh your memory, and you can get back to work solving this problem. This can't be about votes. It's about human lives, and there's a lot of human lives at stake.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining me today. I will see you soon on the McAllen border with Mexico. There isn't a way I can say thank you for everything that you're doing for our country and for everything Border Patrol agents are doing. I hope that the lawmakers out there are hearing you loud and clear, that you guys get the resources you need. And, I'm always here for you. This is a platform that will advocate for the rule of law and to get those stories out so that our nation will be well informed and that we can make the right decisions. Thank you so much for defending Border Patrol agents, Chris, and thank you to the National Border Patrol Council for everything you guys do.
All right. Thanks for having me, and make sure you take your bug spray. You forgot it last time, and I think you paid the price for that. So.
I did. I paid a big price for that. I was waiting for you to say something. Okay. I had bugs everywhere, guys. I'm not even joking. It was crazy. I forgot how many bugs exist along the Rio Grande River in that kind of heat and that kind of humidity. They were just crawling everywhere. Next time I'm not forgetting the bug spray. I was so grateful to have Chris with me. I look forward to having him back on the show again. Okay, I did take a break. When I was in McAllen, Texas, Jenny Terre Jenny was with me. Jenny Terre, she writes for SaraCarter.com, and she's amazing, works on the podcast with me and all that. She was with me this time in McAllen, and we decided to go to the UFO Edinburgh basically festival. It was like a carnival festival, a UFO festival. I couldn't believe it. Right there, right where we were at, like only minutes away. I was like stunned that not only did we go to the UFO festival, but we ran into Nick Pope. I don't know if you guys all remember him. He was on one of my podcasts. He worked for the former member of the British Defense Ministry. He covered he was the guy that was charged with taking care of all of the press releases and everything on their group that investigated UFOs. So Nick Pope was there. He was actually meeting and greeting people and talking to people about, the UFO situation and talking about his books. And we got a chance to talk in person, and Jenny got a tinfoil hat. Jenny wore it. I did not wear the tinfoil hat. Jenny wore a tinfoil hat. I was very excited about that tinfoil hat. And not even that. Let me tell you something. It was great to be just around regular people having a great time. Even after, this whole COVID mess just seeing families out there, kids were actually like in a costume contest, and, people were eating, fried food on a stick. I don't even know what was going on there. There was potatoes wrapped up in a spiral. There were kids having fun. It was a carnival-like atmosphere, and it was just great to see families and people just having a good time and having a good laugh and having fun. And by the way, Alien Abduction won the kids' costume contest. I do not know her name, but it was a great costume. It was like a big alien was carrying this little girl. But obviously her legs were inside the alien's legs, and it looked like she was being held by the alien. It was really funny. I think we have some pictures of that on my Instagram. For all of those photos, I have a few that I posted. Go to my Instagram at scarterdc. Remember, you can find all of my links to all of the social media sites at saracarter.com. Also, I would be remiss if we didn't touch on, before I get off, BLM, the BLM co-founder, right? And this Marxist, and I'm going to go into this in detail, but this Marxist, she is Patrice Cullors. I'm probably pronouncing her name incorrectly, but she bought roughly nearly $3.3 million in homes in the United States, right? $3.3 million. She's 37 years old. She's a big Marxist. She doesn't even like the American family values or, Judeo-Christian values. She's kind of like opposed to the nuclear family, all of that stuff. But this self-described Marxist purchased a $1.4 million home in a secluded road on a short drive from Malibu in Los Angeles. Think about this. It's an pretty much all white neighborhood, but Black Lives Matter, right? Black Lives Matter, but she's purchasing, I don't even know where she's getting all this money. Is it from her foundation? I have no idea. I'm not going to judge, but apparently she bought this home for $1.4 million. According to the New York Post, it was 2,370 square foot property. It's not even that big, but it's big enough. It has soaring ceilings, skylights, and plenty of windows of the canyon in Topanga Canyon. I know Topanga Canyon. It's a beautiful area, but she didn't go around buying homes for, in low income areas for people. She definitely took care of herself first. She's buying her own homes. And there's actually another home that was purchased apparently, it's a custom ranch style, beautiful home that she owns in Georgia. So it has 3.2 acres of land, paved grass. These people are hypocrites. She is a hypocrite. Anybody who falls for Patrice Cullors and her multi-million-dollar real estate buying binge and her BLM, Black Lives Matter organization is really following a liar and a hypocrite. She is not really a Marxist. She is not really somebody who is out there caring about her community. She is somebody that cares a lot about herself. She cares about what she's gonna get and how she's gonna get it. That's the type of person she is. These people are liars. And usually when you look deep enough into these groups that are just, trying to divide our nation and divide us from one another, because they're constantly pointing out race, constantly pointing out who we are and the differences between us, and that, white people are to blame for everything. Black people all of these groups, whether they're white supremacists or whether they're extremists, on whether they're the Black Lives Matter extremists and whether they're Marxists, whether they're leftists, all of these folks are liars and hypocrites. Usually you look into their past, you look into their financing, you look into stuff. They're all out for themselves, and they do nothing good for our nation but divide us. Nothing good but divide us. You know, there is nothing more disheartening than when you see people like this. And we've talked about this before in the past, like where teachers, leftist teachers, try to indoctrinate our children in the university systems and in our high schools. And then you realize, you know, that our kids have been basically bamboozled and brainwashed, and even our college students sometimes, by people that are nothing more than charlatans who don't even believe in what they're saying. But, you know, I guess it works great if you're a Marxist or a Leninist. I mean, really dividing up the United States and driving our nation, pitting one group against the other is exactly what benefits, you know, countries like China and the Chinese Communist Party and, you know, any leftist organizations out there, or even the Russians, any enemy state. I mean, they benefit from this. They benefit from our nation being broken up and fighting one another. But what a hypocrite, right? She's buying all these homes and then trying to act like she's, you know, there for everyone. But apparently those homes are not in, you know, neighborhoods that would benefit from it. They're in mainly white neighborhoods. Although she doesn't want anyone else to be able to do that, apparently. This is her, you know, thing. She has a beachfront Albany resort outside of NASA that are priced, oh gosh, listen to this, luxury apartments and townhomes on a beachfront in Nassau. You know, they're priced between $5 million and $20 million in Nassau. Think about that. I mean, she's looking at these places. Where's all this money coming from? If I was donating to Black Lives Matter, I'd want to take a look into that, right? Look into all of this stuff. Anyways, I'm so happy you were with me today. I'm glad I made it. I did get my COVID vaccine shot, and ending the show with this on Sunday. I think I told y'all before that I did get COVID in December. I put myself on a list. My name randomly came up for this Sunday to get my Johnson & Johnson one-time shot. And I'm actually feeling pretty miserable today, but I'm making it through this podcast. And I want to thank you so much for being with me today. I'll be heading back out to the border tomorrow morning, actually, and I'll be coming to you live from San Diego on Sean Hannity's show on Fox News. I hope you all join me then. Please watch huge breaking stories from the San Diego sector. I look forward to being with you. Remember, you can follow me at SaraACarter.com. That's SaraACarter.com, where you can get all the latest there, as well as all the social media links. You can get them on my website. Again, folks, here at the Sara Carter Show, we are taking the story back. God bless.
Hi, it's Dana Lash, host of The Dana Show. Every day, I'm here to keep you up to speed on the most important stories and info that you need to know in your very busy life. And if you're always on the go and you want to stay connected, just download our daily podcast and take it with you. It's a great way to get up to speed on what you need to know and what legacy media may not be telling you. Visit danaradio.com and click on the podcast link or subscribe at iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.